once again for having us. I'm a big fan of Geoawesomeness, and this is really amazing event. And thanks for everyone for attending. Really looking forward to questions from the audience. So as for me, actually, I wrote the first line of code for Cesium.js a little over 10 years ago. And it's a really special time for us in the world of Cesium now. With the Cesium for Unreal release, we've just seen like unbelievable traction and so much creativity. So we're really excited to just be helping software developers just build these amazing experiences right at the intersection of the digital and physical world.
Be great to have you here, Patrick. We appreciate you being here. Marc, could you give us a short intro about yourself?
Sure. My name is Marc. From Epic, I run the engine business here. It's been 5 years that we're starting to take the engine beyond games. It's been an interesting journey. And my background prior to that, for 11 years, I was running the media entertainment division of Autodesk. You may know products like 3ds Max or Maya or Flame or Motion Builder. I did that. And in between Autodesk and Epic, I did a lot of sustainable mobility projects, electric vehicles, school buses, and a lot of stuff about trying to do good with technology. But I'm happy to be at Epic, where we even do better things, technology to help this planet. So.
All right, Marc, really glad to have you here. I didn't know that you work in Autodesk, so you are actually, you know the stuff, you know the drill. There is, of course, a big debate always, GIS versus CAD, but we'll save it for other discussion.
Yes.
Nadine, really glad to have you here today. Could you tell us a couple of words about yourself?
Yes, so thank you again. I echo everything that Patrick said about your efforts in bringing the community together, especially this last year. And thank you for, my goodness, the 500 people who are on the line. I am Nadine Alameh, the CEO of the Open Geospatial Consortium, OGC. And I've been the CEO for the last 2 years, but I've been in Geo for the last 20 years. And my background is, I'm an MIT tech geek. So this is like a music to my ears when we have computer graphics and photogrammetry and remote sensing and gaming all coming together. And I seriously, I'm standing here like a proud mom of Patrick and Marc, or of Cesium and Epic Games, because they are both OGC members, and what they're doing here to me is what OGC is all about. So I'm just like, I'm so happy right now and thankful.
Well said.
Yeah, thanks, thanks, Nadine. And I guess that for anyone that is involved with geospatial industry, we don't need to introduce OGC, because I mean, you guys do so much for the industry and the standardization that, I mean, yeah, this is great stuff. All right, guys, so let's jump right into it. So let me begin with the first question to Marc. Epic Games is making a huge investment in making the metaverse a reality. Can you explain Epic's vision for the metaverse and why it is worth pursuing?
Well, first of all, I would recommend to anybody to hear this from the horse's mouth and go to some cloud and listen to the metaverse presentation that Tim Sweeney gave a couple of years ago. I think it's very deep, and you would hear Tim talk in that presentation like he talks to us and his vision. And I don't think he has changed a lot over the past 2 years, except that after a year of pandemic, I think everybody kind of understands how much of our life is bound to be digital, and we've just come off of a year where all of our family interaction, social interaction, work interaction that happened online, and we've all crossed Zoom fatigue and the fact that video is not the proper medium. So, I think it's clear that immersive interactive, potentially, when it's comfortable for consumers, is going to be the way to do. So we look at the metaverse for us. It's a social It's a social platform, it's an entertainment platform, and it's a commerce platform. So we're trying to build that. We think Fortnite is a good beginning for the metaverse, but we look at the metaverse as something that has some important founding principles from our perspective, because we come off of 20 years of a mobile platform when we became the product, when our data became the product, and we think that as we transition from the era of mobile to the era of immersive, interactive, and the metaverse, it's a good opportunity to reset, the practices and the model in terms of privacy and business model. So, we look at the metaverse, something that's real-time 3D social medium. It's about entertainment. It's about commerce. About everything. Openness is like core to everything we do. We love open source projects. We're not open source technically in Unreal Engine, but the source code is published, and we have a EULA that says that, we want to be paid for games and just for games. So, very, very clear. Strong social component. We think that the metaverse will evolve from exist already, like the Minecraft, the Roblox, the Fortnite. It's something that's going to pop up out of nowhere. So it's going to be incremental development and connection of those platforms. And what's really matters to us, it's, and that's why next week we're going to be in a big battle with the giant, is it needs to be fair to creator. And we want the economic model to happen on content that you purchase when you like it. Just like in Fortnite, there is no advertising. You buy the skins that you like, and you don't actually have to purchase anything to play the game. We think that this is kind of models, that we would like to be very strong on data privacy and very, very clear on the model and very, very fair with the creators. So that's kind of our vision of the metaverse, and we're creating a platform, and it's a business proposal. It's not a philanthropic endeavor, but we do business with an opinion and with a certain sense of values that we do not compromise on, all the way to suing the biggest company in the world. So, Tiffany.
Thank you so much for sharing this answer. And by the way, Patrick and Nadine, if you've got something to add, it also Marc, to like further answers, just please feel free to do that. But let's jump to the next question to Patrick. How does Cesium fit into making the metaverse a reality?
It's a great question, and I actually think we've been working on the metaverse for a while, and we just recently realized that, and this has happened to us even in the past, where we started Cesium.js for aerospace, and then when we made it open source, right, we had the community tell us that it has lots more use cases outside of aerospace, whether that be entertainment, CAD, simulation, and so on. But when you think about the metaverse and having this two-way bridge, right, between the digital and physical world, well, you need to be able to make a digital twin of the real world. And if you think about modeling the globe and all the way down to every pebble, right, and all the sensors that are available today that's capturing that data and capturing that data over time, it's an incredible amount of geometry, of textures, of material. And then you start throwing AI and ML to generate semantics about that. And it's just a very massive world. And where Cesium is really making our contribution is in creating a spatial index that allows that world to be efficiently disseminated and streamed, so you can take that massive database and then you can eventually get something colored on your screen that is your view of that world. And we're doing this in a very open way by working with groups like OGC and Kronos to create open standards that help facilitate the transmission of these worlds. And then we're building open source visualization engines, as well as commercial platforms for tiling data and storing and disseminating data.
Thank you for answering this one. And now a question to Nadine. Since OGC is a consortium focused on open standards and location information for developers, how does this fit into the metaverse? And do standards matter when it comes to metaverse?
I have to start by actually thanking you for your question, but also if I can comment on Marc and Patrick's answers, which I love, because I hope the people on the line appreciate that when you asked Marc about the vision of the metaverse, he didn't roll through all the technical stuff. He actually started with the values. So thank you for actually starting with that, because it means a lot, you know, from a consortium perspective that's representing the industry and the government and the academia. This means a lot. And same thing when I was listening to Patrick, I appreciated when he's really talking not about what he's done, but how he can make it easy for you, everybody here on the line. And again, I think this is why we're here together. There's this common theme, which is, I think, what we're trying to do. I hope that we're trying to do within the Open Geospatial Consortium. So to answer the question, if you want to remember one thing, the answer is yes. Standards matter. So at OGC, because we're a community of these global experts, and we've always been, I say, obsessed with making geospatial, now location information, findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable. The driver has always been, how do we help somebody solve their problem? And guess what? Pick any problem, right? I'm not talking geospatial. Pick any problem, right, faced by human people. It has to involve a lot of data, right? Because nobody has all the data, and the data comes from all these heterogeneous data sources. And yes, so traditionally, I'm going to the how does that fit? Traditionally, when you think about what we've been doing all these, 25 plus years, some people say even 50 plus years, right, is actually bringing this information together, making it easily integratable and accessible and just available, right, in what I call serious domains: defense and intelligence, science applications, emergency response, right? But isn't this also what the metaverse is all about? Right? It's just this, now in 2021, we can get to that representation of this world. And that's, to me, is the metaverse, this the two-way street. And to keep it real, right? Because we're talking about unreal, even in the metaverse, or especially in the metaverse, you need to combine the data, you have it synced up. And guess what makes it all come together? The glue, that's the standards, right? So yes, standards matter, because if we want to build the metaverse in a scalable fashion, in an open fashion, and we want to support the innovation, I mean, just the questions from the audience, and the last 2 weeks since the release, we're going to have to rely and agree actually together on the glue, so that we can all do what is really more important to us, either the impact or honestly just you know, the impact. I'll stop at that. Standards for impact.
Yeah, I think there's a nice theme between Marc talking about building a platform that's going to enable creators to be part of that ecosystem, and then Nadine, your work with standards, and that I always see just a hotbed of innovation form around the standards. And when we're so early, right, I think this is what you need, because no one's going to do it all, right? You need standards and you need platforms to enable everyone to build.
Yeah, we have a little bit of a complex relationship with standards. We love them, but at the same time, we have to acknowledge that the reason why people turn to a game engine to do like movies, you know, or games or an interactive application is that ability that the game engine has, you know, to represent all aspects of a fully simulated world and the story built into it. And that's going to be very, very hard to get the world to agree on standardizing those elements to make sure that you actually have an open representation of a fully simulatable world. That's why our best answer to this is to, you know, move as fast as we can with our technology, make it available as source code, and then, you know, support all of those standards like Cesium or USD or GLTF or you name it, and with big investment in open source to make sure that our platform remains open. But the key value of the game engine is that, you know, that integration of all the subsystems so that you get the real-time performance. And that's kind of a, you know, an opposite concept to a neutral file format, which is like a lowest common denominator construct most of the time, and is more of a laggard than, you know, a driver of innovation. And so So we love standards, but we also want to make sure that we keep on innovating in the domain of real time.
Yeah. So if Alex can humor me, Mark, you opened the door. The love-hate. To me, I think you're totally right. You both hit on, what happens when we're doing things early on. And I think that's a message for all of us, and what we're trying to do as the OGC community is how do we develop standards at the pace of innovation? Because I think even what we talk about standards and the standards process is changing, just like what you guys are doing. And to me, I'm thankful for this, because I can talk for hours about standards, but seeing is believing. And just the demo that Shazam did earlier is seeing and believing. So appreciate it. It's not a done deal. I think what I take from the love-hate is actually we have a lot of work to do.
Really great answers. I guess that even the fact that we've got OGC and you, Nadine, kind of sharing the points on the discussion today, this really matters, that for gaming industry, the standardization really drives the innovation rather than closing the environment because of maybe competitive thinking is not really going and driving anywhere. So really great to hear that. All right, so Mark, now again over to you. Game engines are famous for creating elaborate virtual worlds. How will the use of real-world 3D content, in our case we mean by this geospatial data, transform world building in Unreal Engine? How do you see this expanding use cases for the platform?
Well, I think that, again, the core capability of the game engine is that, we can aggregate content and playback content in real time from a lot of sources. And I think that means that the GIS data can be used now into a lot more context than before, because, pick your favorite 3D acronym, we have CAD, GIS, PLM, reality capture. I mean, the game engine is wide open to a lot of format and a lot of standards. So I think that's, that frees up everybody. It provides the context for everything. And we are a platform. It starts with the game engine, doesn't end with the game engine. You have to do something with it. You use your scripting language, you have an application, you want something that you want to do. We're a platform, we're not just an end user application. So what are people going to do when they can seamlessly integrate GIS and BIM and stuff? I mean, we've seen some amazing work already, and I think we'll see more. But it's up to you guys to figure it out. We're just creating the possibility. But the other thing that we care about, and Patrick touched on it, is, as we think about, cloud-based gaming, next generation console, and the amount of content that we put in games now, we create entire new worlds. The promise of the game engine is for transmedia production, in the same world, you create a game, you create a movie. And think about Avatar and Pandora, think about Star Wars and Tatooine. I mean, we want to be able to get those tools across the fence to people creating, worlds that do not exist, and have that ability to, to have visual quality movie. I want to drop a camera into Cesium and shoot a movie. That's the ultimate goal. We're not there, not quite there, but we will get there. And then, we need to add a layer of game stuff to add, the trash can in the street, and make it something that lifelike above and beyond the building. So we have a lot of complementary technology, but we want to have that photorealistic quality. And then we want to let people create stuff, but way outside of GIS, use that GIS construct to manage large-scale worlds and open worlds. So I think that's gonna, drive a lot of convergence. Create opportunity for people and create games we haven't seen before or movies we haven't seen before. That's it.
Patrick, so maybe following up on this question here, so I guess that you must have seen a lot of really interesting and, on the other hand, crazy use cases, and you guys must have thought about some really a whole portfolio of different applications. Could you share some insights on like the most useful and the most crazy examples of the use cases?
Question for Patrick. He is the guy with the crazy ideas here.
Oh,
That's crazy.
Well, so first, look, I mean, working really closely here with Unreal Engine is really exciting to me personally, right? So in high school, I did a lot of game programming on my own, like way back with like QBasic and Turbo Pascal, and I thought that I wanted to go into game development, right? But then I realized, hey, I wanted to do graphics development in general, and now I'm starting to see this 180 where I'm like, well, geez, what is a graphics development? Or what is game development? It's this line is blurring here. In terms of the use cases that we're seeing, I mean, it really is this two-way connection in that we're bringing 3D geospatial into Unreal Engine, and then our core 3D geospatial community is now getting exposed to Unreal Engine, right? So we're seeing this kind of two-way collaboration and innovations on both sides. Some of the fun and crazy stuff we see is, we've already seen on Twitter and LinkedIn, Full Sail University picking up Cesium from Unreal and using it in their course and having the carriages flying around the photogrammetry models, which I think has been really cool. We've seen a ton of work in the simulation world, and I think we're in store for an amazing demo at the end of this presentation from Sammy in the flight sim world. And then we see a lot in AEC where you have a city, it's photogrammetry, then you want to put in your future potentially built architecture model, or you kind of want to go backwards in history and, for example, recreate a flood that might have happened 50 years ago from a photograph. So, and I think we're very early, and we're going to keep seeing this like almost every day, definitely every week, but we constantly are seeing this. And for all the folks in the audience, please, if you're doing something cool or you even just have an idea, I mean, drop it in the chat, send us a link to what you're posting on social media.
I don't know how. Go ahead, Nadine.
No, I think when we talk about crazy, the examples that Patrick mentions, and seriously, the buzz on Twitter just from the release, this is 2 weeks, reminded me of when, remember when Google Earth came out, right? And, we've been doing that, whatever that is, right, for years, but then Google Earth came out, and all of a sudden, it sparks, because again, seeing is believing, it's like all these opportunities, and that two-way, I'm gonna hit actually, Mark, on use case that you mentioned, because I think it's really big. It's the digital twins. It's the urban digital twins. And that's why I appreciated Shazam and his demo. He kept going back to the physics model. This is not fake. This is not a game. This is actually based on models. And I think this is where our power is, because we've got the hydrology model. I mean, he had an ocean model, and we have an air model, and we have all of that. And to bring it all together, that's the crazy. That's where we're still, I think we haven't seen the crazy.
I agree. And I think on May 5th, we have, we have an online presentation on digital cities called The Pulse. And I think it's going to be an interesting presentation to illustrate around digital cities. Like we have the entirety of Wellington in the engine, the city of Wellington, and I think that's the starting point. Once we create, when the data is there, you still have to write the application and do something, do the analysis that you need to do. It's not just about creating some beautiful representation of the existing data. It's about enabling analysis, enabling simulation, enabling presentation.
Yeah, thank you for this for these answers. And I mean, when I think about different crazy applications, so Nadine, you said that you've got 2 boys. So I guess that if you would let them build their works and finding the different applications and use cases, we would all be very surprised by what they would create, because this is really like giving a lot of space for unleashed creativity. All right, so Patrick, this is, I guess, a really very important question towards the core of the philosophy of Cesium. So you've decided to release Cesium for Unreal free and open source. So why do you think this is the right move?
You know, we put a lot of thought into this. So if you just think about the metaverse, right, and you know, the metaverse is really, it has the potential to be the impact of the internet, right? If you go back 30 years ago and you think about the internet unfolding, I mean, you need to spark collaboration, you need to spark innovation, and we think doing open source and making that source code available and allowing communities to form around that, to submit bugs, to submit pull requests, even just to have access to the code to help them debug, we think it's a great move, right? Now, at the same time, you know, we have to run a business, and our business is growing very quickly, and we want to make sure that we can build something that's sustainable and ultimately scalable. So you look at, okay, well, how do you fund that open source? So we didn't want to give away everything that we're doing as open source, because it actually creates this kind of inverse incentive to not make your open source components as good as possible, right? So we've done the whole visualization layer on top of Unreal as open source, Apache 2.0 license, and then we use what's called an open core model, and then we create separate optional value add software here in the form of cloud and on-premise services to tile your 3D data, and then to serve 3D content that we've curated, such as terrain and buildings that's ready to use. So it creates a very fair model where we compete on the merit of our products, not on any type of vendor lock-in. And we use, no surprise here, open standards, right, to have our open source products or projects communicate with our commercial products.
Good move.
Yeah, I think Patrick, you described it so well, because you know, how do you balance you know, being a profitable or even a sustainable business with being open? And I think what's happening here, that's why, you know, we're waiting on the crazy, because this group is the enabler for the innovation, and that's the value proposition in this case. And what you guys are doing are essentially collaborating to compete, or collaborating so that other people compete, so that we all grow that pie. I think that's what I hear. Just growing the opportunities based on, you know, the combination of open standards and open source.
Well said.
And as I was telling Patrick just before the event started, this is really also inspiring approach. So I guess that this is really the move that will have a lot of followers in the industry. So this is really awesome. Nadine, another question is for you. From collaborator and innovator perspective, how does gaming fit into the bigger picture of location? Where have you seen this technology applicable, and where is it going?
So I'm smiling big time, because this is reminding me with you know, of our prep call when Mark said I could spend the whole hour on this. So so Alex, you mentioned so it's the perspective of collaborator and innovator, but it's also a perspective from a mom. You mentioned, you know, I have two boys, ages 9 and 13, and I call them video game experts, because I don't want to say addicts. Okay, so they're experts, but they generally spend more time in the metaverse than with me. I think it's a fact, and now their school is even, you know, virtual. So how does everything fit together? Because exactly how Mark started, everything fits together right now, because we're living in a virtual world. But on the serious end, because the previous question about the use cases is the same thing, where we keep, I think, increasingly appreciating that everything happens in space and time, and that's geospatial, and that's how it's coming back all the time to location, right? And the cool, you know, things that I can dream about is being able to take my son on college tours without actually going there, because my goodness, if we can fly around, how cool is that? And it's real. It's not It's not a fake, right? Or even real estate people showing houses during the pandemic. How cool if you can actually navigate from different perspectives, and it's not pictures that you have right now. And somebody on the chat mentioned underground. That's like a whole area. Can you imagine? I mean, that's why we're working so hard these days on an underground data model, because the energy pipes and the water pipes and the phone pipes and everything underground, I'm not the expert, but it's still siloed, and we have to bridge that gap so that you can actually navigate underground. And that's where I think, you know, when Patrick talks about the standards, it's like there are several steps way before you get to the amazing demo that Shazam did, right? So I will end with 2 examples, I think, where this is going, the impact, right? One is I mentioned the urban digital twins. So this is helping with urban planning. I mean, imagine we see exchanges and events around, if we put more green space, what happens to the community. But imagine seeing that, because you can play with the time. Imagine seeing how it improves the air quality or reduces cost of childcare because people can go to the park, or they change their mobility patterns because they want to go to the park. Just seeing that. So that's an amazing example, I think, which is, I think, honestly, low-hanging fruit. We're not that far. The one that's the dream is the climate understanding, right? So imagine doing this at a global scale. That's why, again, I appreciated the physics, the model. Because if we have all these models, and we sort of have the expertise, imagine starting to track and understand climate change from a local level. So if you make a decision, about, a decision in a county or a country, and how it affects us globally, and vice versa, how something global goes all the way down to the local, as to maybe influencing how much we pay for gas or how much we pay for any, consumable. That's, I think, where eventually it fits all together, and it's all happening in space and time. And in some ways it's simple, but actually it's very, very complex.
Thank you, Nadine. So let me ask another question to you, Marc. Because this is really important from the geospatial industry perspective. So what will game engine technology contribute to the geospatial industry?
Okay, so there's a few layers to that. The base sensor is a high-quality presentation layer for your data with photorealistic rendering. UE4 gives a lot of capabilities. As you heard about UE5, is going to deliver that. And then when you start adopting the engine as a platform, you can deliver your projects across a lot of other platforms, like hardware platforms, like mobile and the cloud and pixel streaming and Linux and everything, and a lot of other fancy systems like game console that you may not care about, but other people do care about. The other thing is it's an aggregation platform that I said ingest and combine a lot of data, and we do this in 2 ways. One is we fully support open standard like GLTF or USD or 3D tiles or FBX or Alembic, but we also have our data mesh architecture that allows us to make sure that we get the right data, and we're not at the mercy of a vendor. Like if you want to import a BIM file, we don't want to be at the mercy of whatever people write in an open format. So we have connectors to a lot of CAD and PLM systems, a lot of other systems to make sure that we have a metadata-rich environment. And then it's a game development, it's an interactive development application. Whether you use Python or use blueprints, you can create an interactive application. You have UI, you have physics, you have a bunch of things available for free. You have C++ programming. You can integrate it to the library in your application. You can create mobile apps. It gives you, once the data is in real, it gives you a lot of platform. The other thing is around collaboration. The engine supports multi-user editing. It's not something you usually find in desktop software. Collaboratively, people around the planet, as we speak, are designing movies or games in the Unreal Engine. And the output application that you put out, like what Shannon was demonstrating, can be multi-user as well. This is a core of a game. It's it's not a game is never a solitary experience. And then it comes it comes with, we connect a lot of the technology like TwinMotion. You know, it's a very easy, simple tool to use that allows you to, that's the easiest way you can have to tap into the power of the Unreal Engine to aggregate data, and then you can move that data across to the engine. We recently started to work with the reality capture team from Capturing Reality in Slovakia, because we're a strong believer that we can improve the photogrammetry pipeline. As you have probably seen the quality of our Quixel mega scans, and we want basically any one of you to be able to produce that level of quality, the multiplicity of those formats, all those LODs, and really make it practical to go and scan everything in the planet and bring it into the Unreal Engine, through Cesium or through other mechanisms. So it's a complete ecosystem, to create a digital twin of the planet and to create the application that's going to leverage this data, plus all the world of fantasy that we do in entertainment. But it works for that too. So it's a number of things, and it's free. There's no catch. I mean, our business model is based on the fact that for people like you, we don't market the tools. We sell support contracts. If you don't want to do it on your own, we're happy to support you, but you would have to pay for that. We only collect, a modest revenue share on games. That's our business model. It works fine. Source coded on the internet. It's very open. We are a very, very successful business. We don't need to lock people into our data or overprice for software to make a great living. So we're very, very happy to be able to run the business this way.
Can I add to Mark? Oh my God, you're very inspiring, Mark. Appreciate it. I can't stop myself, so we'll have to stop us. When I hear you talk about how will the game engine technology contribute to the geospatial industry, all I'm hearing is actually it's almost like you're gonna force us to work together more closely so that we can actually build the metaverse, or it will never get there because then you'll have to build all these connectors. And so what I'm hearing is it's actually you have that environment where somebody can bring the pieces together, and now you're saying you have no excuse. I'm seeing the climate change also chat on the chat. It's like, no, and you have no excuse. Do it. And that's what I'm hearing that you can bring to the geospatial industry, actually, and beyond. It's all on you. It's like, no.
It's clear that the raison d'être of the Unreal Engine is to create a pathway for the metaverse. I mean, we have this vision for this, this social and entertainment and commerce platform that can be used at work as well. It's not going to be the only one, but of course, the engine is going to be the pathway into this, and we want to eliminate friction for all the digital cities and for the planet, for that people can enjoy the planet in that platform. What they do with it is entirely up to them. The kind of application you do with it, whether you try to have fun and have games, or you do something very serious, like you mentioned, around explaining, doing visual communication about complex phenomena that drive to climate change. All that stuff is 100% up to the people. And that's why we want to be creator-friendly and very open. It's the base of what we're trying to do is build a momentum around that platform.
Yeah, then if I could just add a few comments talking about what Unreal Engine brings to the geospatial industry. So, I've described it internally at Cesium and, on social media that when we released Cesium for Unreal Engine, I really feel like we made 10 years progress overnight. Right? When I look at anything from the volumetric clouds to the water effects, I know, and Cesium knows exactly how much work goes into building those type of presentation layer features. And there's been, I guesstimate billions of dollars of investment in game engine technology and its ecosystem. And now that's unlocked, right, for us to build geospatial applications. And we've, game engines were historically for games, virtual made-up worlds. We've now added the precision layer, right? So global scale, WGS84, ellipsoid, mesoscale streaming, accurate, the same accuracy that we put in Cesium.js, the same accuracy that we had in the aerospace software at AGI. So I really think it's a remarkable tool chain and platform for all broadly across geospatial.
So much for the answers. Let's maybe now jump more into specific technology. So let me maybe fast forward one question here, and let's look into the the 3D tiles, right? So we understand that 3D tiles, and this is a question to you, Nadine. We understand that 3D tiles, a standard built for streaming massive amounts of 3D data, is a community standard originally created by Cesium. But why is interoperability important for creation platforms like Unreal Engine?
So first of all, I have to give full credit to Patrick and his team for 3D tiles, for actually not only seeing the future right in 3D tiles, but seeing how much bigger of an impact, we were just talking about this, how much bigger of an impact it can have if it's an open community standard. And it's win-win, right? I think on so many levels, and a great success story in developing standards at the pace of innovation, in making the pie larger, in creating a platform for innovation. So I can go on. But in this case, when I look at, again, I mean, I appreciate we started with a demo because it sort of grounds us. So when I go back to the demo and how we were talking about streaming, I mean, it looks so simple, but it's so complex behind it. We were streaming, Shazam was streaming massive heterogeneous data sets in the back end, right? That's what we're talking about here. How do you get what you need, just what you need as tiles from the data sets across data sets? That's the interoperability. So you don't have to do it one by one, right? Because we all know that the developers, that's not where they want to spend their time on, right? So we get the basics for them. That's the streaming, that's the performance, so that they can get to the meat of the applications, of the decisions, and really help us with all the problems that we're talking about here. So the interoperability becomes just agreeing on how we're going to do the basics so that we can thrive on it. Helps?
Definitely. And yeah, I totally agree, and I guess that Patrick and Mark as well. So let's just take one last question,
Alex,
from my end,
yeah,
and
okay.
then we will move to the questions from the audience. So Patrick, just wanted to ask you, now that we have 3D tiles in the real world inside game engines, what is the next for 3D tiles?
Yeah, I'll be brief, right? So we built 3D tiles to be able to stream massive heterogeneous 3D geospatial data sets, including the geometry and the materials and the metadata that gives you kind of the semantic meaning behind it. Is you're on the side of a building, right? What's a brick versus what's a window? And we're just seeing more and more semantic metadata being created, right, for 3D models, largely due from AI and ML algorithms. And one of the things that we're doing to move forward to 3D tiles specification is to be able to store that data at a variety of granularities, so we can very efficiently store that at a very fine grain of detail. And I think, semantically augmenting these 3D models is going to be a huge advancement for us.
So much. So now the actual fun begins. So let's start taking questions from the audience. Mutu,
All right.
Following the chat, so over to you.
Thank you very much. First of all, thanks a lot to all three of you for being focused on the questions here and not being distracted by all the questions and the nice conversations that are happening in the chat. But now is the time for you guys to answer some of the questions that the audience had. And let me start with a question that Leo sent us yesterday. And I found this question so interesting and also timely because we just had the Oscars. No idea who won. Don't want to know. Don't spoil it. But what happens if we use the Cesium for Unreal Engine in movies? How do the licenses work? And if I win an Oscar, do I have to share it with Patrick and Mark?
What about me?
Yeah, I think to answer that last question is definitely yes, and we would love to be on stage. So we're, in terms of the Cesium for Unreal release kind of opening up our eyes, we are seeing a lot of interest here, right, in being able to use the real world models that Cesium can stream to make movies. And we're just now starting to understand kind of the downstream data licensing requirements for that. So I would really need to hear a little bit more. I would love for this person here to contact myself or Shazan, because we want to make this use case work. We think it's a really amazing idea.
How do you see this, Mark? Do you share Patrick's opinion that you are fine with just getting the Oscar, or do you also want the big money?
Yeah, I mean, the data licensing is an open issue. I think, right now when you shoot a movie in the city, you have to obtain an authorization, which is some form of license. And I think all of those practices, which are very diverse actually and not standardized at all, will apply in the digital world. And I think we all going to have to learn how to live with it, how to live with it. But certainly it is not something I would overlook right now. I mean, the OpenStreetMap data doesn't have a lot of content into it. I don't think anybody will have trouble using OSM data, but as we get, with photogrammetry and much more detailed representation of buildings and brands and stuff, we will, it was something that we're going to have globally to figure out. And the IP owner, we're going to have to decide what they want to do with their IP,
Yeah.
What do we do with the game's headquarters? Somebody wants to fly a drone and scan it, and can they put this in a game? I mean, it's kind of up to us to decide, and I think the legislation will have to adjust a little bit as well. So.
I think, Nadine, you have an answer as well, and I guess it doesn't involve you getting Oscars.
I will go to the party. No, but it's just occurred to me, actually, it's because it's not a far-fetched idea. I'm thinking, I know an Oscar winner, right? And he is, used to be with a company called Pixia, an OGC member, and he was the editor of the WAMI spec, the wide area imagery spec, and it actually won an Oscar. So this is not crazy what we're talking about here. This is definitely, and this is how amazing what we do in geospatial for the serious stuff. Eventually it translates into entertainment where you get the awards. So that was my contribution. It's actually, we have Oscar winners amongst us already. And, I'm looking again at the chat. It looks like next year I'll be getting some invites.
Sounds like a plan. All right. So I have to admit that we have a ton of questions, but with an eye on the time and also not to overload you guys too much, I will go through a couple of them in random order. So for those of you whose questions are going to get left out, please don't worry. I will follow up with Patrick, Mark, and Nadine to make sure that they answer it. So here goes for the first question. And I love this question, actually. So we've been talking about game engines. We've been talking about geospatial. And I'm going to start here with Mark. So which industry do you think has the more potential to evolve the other? Do you think it's going to be game engines changing the way we engage with geospatial data and systems? Or do you think it's going to be the other way around?
I think we are amazed to see, every time an industry embraces the game engine, what they can do with it. So I actually don't know how to answer this question because I think, we feed off of each other. I mean, gaming is, in real-time 3D, it's the beginning. I mean, we're very used to digital video as a medium. It's the super early days of a real-time 3D as a medium. This is going to get, such an integral part of all of our lives in the foreseeable future. As soon as we get that hardware we'll be waiting for. So I think it's, it'll be, I don't know who's going to influence each other, but I know it's going to be part of everybody's life at home and at work, guaranteed.
What do you think, Nadine?
I agree. I think we, and by we, of geospatial, right? I think we are definitely opening a lot of worlds, for the gaming, right? Because it's not anymore restricted to gaming. Just the simulation, honestly, on the defense and intelligence, side of things is just the whole world. And we see on the chat the AAC stuff, and again, going all the way to climate understanding. But I also hear Patrick, and I was nodding my head when he said, what is it, overnight we made progress because of you in the geospatial industry of about 10 years? True. So I'm agreeing, it's both ways, and it's both ways quick. So it's not going to take 5 years for us to see. It's actually really quick.
Patrick, let me guess, your bet is on the geospatial industry changing the gaming?
No, I agree with Mark and Nadine here, and I think the line is blurry, right? Am I a geospatial developer? Am I a game developer? Or am I just a developer, right? I think that it's becoming blurry, and that's a good thing.
Fantastic. Speaking of developers, and I guess all three of you have some programming experience, so here comes a question that for me at least is a bit in that direction. With all of these 3D models and this wonderful integration of real world into gaming engines and vice versa, do you see this as a bottleneck in terms of what we can handle with our GPUs?
Well, this is where you get to have smart engineers on your team, because, first of all, the acceleration of Moore's law has actually been beaten. Jensen Huang has made this case many, many times. In terms of the hardware gets more powerful. We're talking about, high-speed networking everywhere. So I think the hardware platforms are going to be amazing. But, with some proper engineering, with visual texturing and with Nanite, with the virtual geometry system, I think we can, we have line of sight on the moment when we can process in real time infinite amount of geometries. And that's, at the end of the day, that's that simple. I don't want to be very cocky about it. We have a lot of people spending a lot of time to make it work. It's not going to work on the first try, but I think, we think we know how we can process the kind of level of details that we need to produce something that's photorealistic. And there was a question in the chat about, using procedural techniques. 100%. Capture is only one thing, but you need to add a procedural layer on top of it. When we do reality capture now, we know the machine knows what the image are for. The machine can say, this is a forest, this is a road, this is a car, this is a building. You don't have to use the people geometry on every single thing you can do. So I think it's, we have a bright future with machine learning by mixing 3D reconstruction and people geometry and synthesis and all the things we've been doing in video games for the past 25 years, actually. So we understand those things and populate gigantic environment, very, very easily in a way that's, first plausible to sensors and maybe plausible for humans.
Nadine? Yeah, sure.
Can I add to that? Yes. So I just want to add that it's a great question. It's a timely question because we are talking about this exponential growth. And to me, this is why I see within the OGC community, we have now players like HP, like Intel, and NVIDIA is doing a lot. So I think this is why we're literally all coming together. This is the push, so we reach, and now we need the chip manufacturers and the designers, the engineers, like Mark said, to take us to the next level. So you totally can see where this is going.
Patrick, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I would say, Cesium exists, and, my entire career exists because of this question, right? And I completely agree with Mark in that the GPU performance is unbelievable, that adding procedural on top of the stand world is very compelling. At the same time, the user expectations is growing very quickly, where they expect these photorealistic scenes, and then the scale of the worlds are increasing and the detail that you model. So I think the core techniques that we're working on around streaming, level of detail, compression, polling, all of those smart engineer stuff that Mark is saying, that there's still years and years ahead of us to keep pace with the amount of data being generated and then that user demand.
All right, fantastic. So that kind of leads me into the next question. You set it up rather well. So the demand for things are always increasing, and people are already bored with your Unreal Engine 4. So we want to talk about Unreal Engine 5. already. I know it's only been a couple of weeks since you guys released it, so take a breather. We don't want you to do it tomorrow, but we definitely want you to do it like
Wow, so the nods
1
were the
week.
yeses. I guess
So the
that
question
answer,
was
yes.
if you can use nanite technology to reconstruct 3D cities together with geolocation. Can we do it in Unreal Engine 5?
Eventually you will. So we're still working on UE5. You know, we announced preview for the spring. Spring has only started; it's not finished. So look at the leaves, and you know, it's about to come. It's a very, very ambitious endeavor. The Nanite and Lumen actually providing like that amount of complexity and that real-time photo, you know, GI. But you know, you'll see already a lot of a lot of it. But I mean, let's be honest. I mean, this is the kind of thing is you don't get 100% right on the first release, and so we'll make it work over the next, you know, months and next couple of years. But yes, the short term, we will see that come fairly soon, in my opinion.
Okay, then let's maybe take one more question. I know that you guys are a bit tired, so humor me for one more question. I promise it's the last one, and this is a bit of a philosophical one, I guess. So what are your views on the metaverse? Is it similar to a cryptoverse, decentralized land, CryptoVox, the sandbox?
Wow.
I have to be honest, I probably have to Google most of these terms after the event, so you are on your own for this one. Nadine, do you want to go first?
I can give you my answer is whenever there is, you know, crypto in a sentence or NFTs, I just move to the next one. I think it's just like, sort of, you know, hugely undefined concepts. I mean, we know we're going to have VR in the virtual world, but right now there are a lot of scammy concepts that revolve around those things, and I tend to stay away from them, to be honest.
What about you guys? Do you agree with Marc? Do you see it differently? I mean, on a personal level, I don't understand it, so I don't invest in any of the NFTs and the cryptocurrencies. But how do you see this? You know, is the metaverse going to have a marriage with the?
I think everybody's mesmerized with the chat. Like seriously, this is the best chat I have seen. Because you can totally tell, right? Go, please.
Well, yeah, I'm probably not the right person to talk crypto, but I did like what Marc said much earlier here about the metaverse is going to enable creators, right, to monetize their content, right, doing that as opposed to, for example, putting up a bunch of banner ads, right, and I think that's a really enriching and compelling place, and then there will be, the technology underlying kind of the distribution of those goods and the monetization of those goods, which I guess is maybe related to the question. Maybe, Marc, that's something that you might want to tell us more about.
Maybe, yeah, Marc, go ahead.
No, I mean, and I was reading another, comment on crypto and decentralized finance and general ledger technology. I mean, we don't even know if it's really scaled. So will those things play a role? Maybe, but we know the principles. We don't quite know how we're going to implement that. Right now we use, Google payment systems. And I think that's what, we'll do whatever consumer want us to do. At the end of the day, that's whatever is going to be the mainstream solution. And what we care about is not to, as you know, not to overcharge, and like grab an undue piece of the pie because you're the guy providing the payment system. So we don't have any strong opinions on what is going to be the implementation of those ideas, but we're very, very strong on our values and ideas on the things we want to see and don't want to see. In our own corner of the metaverse, I mean, there will be multiple corners in the metaverse. On ours to be, as you said, fair to creators and fair to consumers.
Okay, maybe one parting question from my side. And I mean, all three of you've done incredible work in the last couple of years, especially now with this Unreal Engine. But is there maybe one thing that you feel and hope and wish that the industry understands better?
So is it just me? Or did
Nadine, can you hear us?
So Alex or Muthu?
Guys, can you hear me, or is it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess it's you can still hear me. If you can hear me, then yeah, perfect. So like I was saying, is there a specific aspect that you wish that the audience and the general public who are using your APIs and engines understood better? Is there one misconception, one engineering challenge that you wish people appreciated?
It's a really good question. Yeah, I think you caught me off guard. I don't know. I mean, so one thing is we're big on, education, right, as the way that kind of we bring our products to market. And, we really love folks to jump in, right? And we give tutorials and video tutorials so that you can, you can try it out in 30 minutes, right? So we encourage folks, if you think there's potential, and you're not sure, just dive in, right? It's fast and easy to get started.
Yeah, give it a spin. I mean, it's all out there, for the taking on the internet. And I think be curious and experiment. I think it's, we're hearing how, 65-year-old cinematographers are downloading the engine and learning how to design their movies. And it was something we heard yesterday. It was an amazing thing that, people who are curious can actually see all the value from it. So I think that's the thing. Give it a spin. There is no catch.
All right.